Agency Reviews, and you are tuning in to the Friday 15, where every Friday, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we answer your industry questions. Today we have on our co-host, a friend that you know and you have heard before, April Swales from Uniglobe Travel Center. Hello, April.
Hello, and thank you for letting me come on and spend time. It's always a pleasure.
Well, you're not gonna. I'm surprised you said that because everyone, we have doozy of questions
Yes.
this week. Whoever anonymous is that submitted these, I know why you put anonymous in there. 'Cause
Right. You're like, ugh. Yeah, they were
both
tough.
both April and I were like, did a lot of digging on these. So great job. You've stumped us, but we do have some answers for you. If you have a question, and preferably one that's not as hard as anonymous as this week, you can go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15 and submit your own. In fact, if you're feeling bad for us after you hear these questions and just want to give us, a huge softball that you're going to lob our way, we would love that.
We'll take
Yeah, we're definitely going to take those. A few things before we get into today's questions. So, first, we are approaching survey season. If you don't know, every year, right after taxes end, like on April 15th here in the US, we start our survey every year for travel advisors. This is where we get the data for our hosted advisor report, our independent advisor report, and our employee report, which we'll link to for those that aren't familiar with them. But we want you to take it and we want you to get involved. So go to host agency reviews. No. Oh yeah, hostagencyreviews.com/survey. And you can sign up for survey reminders so that when it comes out, you don't forget. And if you're
Mhm.
wondering, I don't really want to take a survey, those are boring stuff. Yes, I know they're boring, but A, it's important. And B, this is beneficial to you because everyone that takes it gets a free survey, which is worth hundreds of dollars. And not only is it's actually worth more than that because the amount of
Right.
data that's in there for benchmarking for your agency is going to earn yourself back. And all it is going to take is about 5 minutes of your time. So please sign up to take the survey. Um, Other things. We have a webinar coming up next week. Travel Planners International has one, so we're going to link to that. We also have, if you want to spend more time with April, because this 15 minutes is not going to be enough for you. And I totally get you. I get that because I get time with April before we go live. If you need more time with her, you can go watch the Uniglobe Travel Center Host Week Coffee Spot, which is an hour of fun with April. And we're going to link to that as well if you want to learn more about Uniglobe Travel Center. All right. We're going to start with our doozies. I had to break it into two questions. So this is from our friend Anonymous. our,
Were
our,
these submitted by the same person?
yeah.
Okay. Well, we wouldn't know, right? It's anonymous. So,
Oh, you know what? I think all three I'm not sure if they're all three from the same person. I know number 2 and 3 I broke into two
two different.
questions.
Gotcha.
But okay, so Anonymous says, how do HAR courses differ from an IATA course or something offered through a host agency? So let me start with this one by talking about, I'm not sure which HAR course you're talking about. We've kind of got 3 courses that we've worked on. So one is through ASTA, and that's the roadmap to becoming a travel advisor. That one I'm going to link to in the comments for people that aren't familiar. And that one is kind of ASTA's course that we help them write, and it focuses on you giving a big picture of what the travel industry is like, who the players are, how they play together, what your day-to-day job is going to be like. It's not going to teach you necessarily how to book travel, but it'll give you an examples so you can say this is what I have been envisioning for this career, or wow, that's not what I like to do. So that's kind of what the ASTA roadmap course is. It's 240 pages, and there's I think maybe like 3 or 4 hours of video within there. So that's really in depth, but it's just kind of an overview on how the travel agency landscape is and what it's like to be a travel advisor. Then we have our 7-day setup courses here at HAR, and there's the 7-day setup accelerator course. Now, what that is it's from when you've taken, what I recommend is taking ASTA's course first to see if this is even a career choice that makes sense to you. If you
Mhm.
like what you're reading and this all makes sense to you, then you take our course because this is the 7-day setup is specific. It's very specific in how you start your agency because there's a lot of logistics behind it. So we walk you through everything from creating your name, finding your niche, opening your bank accounts, how to like get your financials set up, and helping you find a host agency or a consortium, whichever route you go. And then what happens is you're going to take your host agency trainings, and your host agency, April, what do you teach over at Uniglobe?
Well, we actually walk through the fundamentals. If you're brand new to the industry, we have our 3-month mentorship program, and some of you might already be familiar with it. But our goal is to help give you exposure to things like navigating your way through booking portals, understanding how the industry relationships work, who are your contacts at the preferred supplier partners that we work with, how do you get in touch with them, why would you get in touch with them? They're not necessarily who you would talk to make a reservation, but maybe if you're wanting to close a sale to a group or an individual and you want to add value, those are the types of things that BDMs can help you with, or additional training. They can provide that as well. We also talk about things like how to handle client emergencies. What's the hierarchy of who to reach out to if you have a specific emergency with a client? You know, it's all about teaching you to be prepared for any outcome. You can prevent some things, but you're not going to be able to prevent everything.
Yep.
So what are your resources for handling things like that? We talk about staying compliant with seller travel, whether or not you decide to set up an LLC for your business. So, and we're going to focus a lot on goals too, because it's all going to be relevant to what you're trying to build for your travel business. We do a little bit differently than we've done in the past. We've always done one-on-one Zooms with our Mentor You program, but now I mentioned this on the coffee spot. We've introduced a cohort element to the coaching now, so it allows people to collaborate with other business owners that are at a similar place and building their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about learning to see things from a different point of view and understanding how to anticipate your clients' needs. And obviously, nobody is done learning at 3 months, but it's a great introduction to help you lay down that solid foundation.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to link to the landing page on your site for Mentor You as well for people that are more interested. But anonymous, so that kind of gives you an example of what the HAR courses are focused on. With Uniglobes, there's their Mentor You, there is very specific to new advisors, but a lot of times with the host agencies, they're going to teach you more about the frontline basics of booking travel and interacting with suppliers, things that are more day to day. And then in terms of what IATA does, and for those that don't know what IATA stands for, it's the International Air Transport Association, I think.
Yep.
Now,
International Airline Transportation Association, I think is what it is.
yeah, something like that. The bottom line is they are the airlines lobbying association. And so like ASTA is to travel advisors, IATA is to the airlines. And so their course is going to focus, there's actually not that much on there for travel advisors. They're going to focus on a lot of air things because it's cargo transport and lots of other stuff that's not going to be super applicable to you. But we're going to link to if corporate travel advising, if you want to become a corporate travel advisor, where you might be using the GDS and you, with the GDS, IATA's more closely aligned with the GDS system. I'll put a link in to our Becoming a Corporate Travel Agent article because that lists some of the trainings that corporate advisors take, including those that IATA offers. So, and I'm also going to link to our just general travel agent education article so you can get an idea of what else is out there. All right, our doozy questions. Hello, HAR and team. You have been very informative and useful on your website. I have a few questions about commissions. To travel agents based in Europe, as far as I know, most airlines do not pay commission. But it seems to me that this is not the case for travel advisors based elsewhere. I am asking this because I just got my IATA accreditation and my business is mostly flight consulting, but I do this for clients based around the world. However, because I am in Switzerland, I can't get a commission for, say, someone flying out of India or Africa or Australia, other places where local agents are paid commissions. And probably the same is true for travel advisors based in India. He won't get, let's see, a travel advisor based in India won't get commission on a flight, say, out of Germany, right? Does it all depend on where you're based? April, I know you did some deep digging on this.
I did.
Chat with us on it.
Okay. So while I can't, well, let me preface this first. I told Steph I was going to do this and I want to make sure I follow through. So I am not a GDS advisor. And so everything that I'm going to be mentioning to you today is based on the research that I've done. I've spoken to some GDS advisors. Our director of agency support, his name is Ansel Jordan. He's been on the GDS for many years, and he provided some context as well. And I'm going to provide Steph with some links to some of the resources that I used for this. So just know that even though I am speaking on this question, I don't have GDS experience myself. So I want to make sure that everybody does their own due diligence on anything they want to follow up with. That said, when it comes to GDS access in the US, don't know about Switzerland or other parts of the world, but when it comes to commissions earned on the GDS, whether it's through airline tickets, because it's not just airline, it's airline, hotels, and car rentals, it's based on the contracts that you have with those supplier partners. Some contracts will pay as little as 2%, and some might pay as high as 28%. It's all over the place. It has to do with not just your sales volume, but the class of service, lots of different things. So it would be really hard to intelligently say, I am confirming that it's based on where you live. Switzerland might be totally different than, and when they say they are now IATA accredited, does that mean that they've actually earned the full IATA accreditation? Or do they have an IATA card that they've earned through a host agency? I don't know if that's a thing in Switzerland.
It should be, I think.
Okay. And then also too, if you go through to get your IATA credentials, you had mentioned that there's a lot of things that are not applicable to leisure agents, like cargo things and things like that. You can get a lower level accreditation that doesn't require all of the same stuff as a full on IATA accreditation. So not knowing what that means to her, it's hard to say whether she's even eligible for commissions. Because if you're just a non-GDS advisor and you're helping a client book air, if you don't have access to an air desk, you could work through a supplier partner that has an air desk, which means they themselves are on the GDS and they can help you ticket the client. If it's not a bulk fare, they may not pay any sort of commission on it. And even still, it's going to be very low, maybe 2 to 5%. And that varies based on the supplier partner. If it's a published fare, there may be nothing, so it just really depends. But that's why when she mentioned, well, I'll let you get to the second part of her question, but that's why a lot of people choose to charge a service fee when they book air for clients, because it's actually very difficult to earn any commission on air tickets if you are not a GDS advisor. And even then, if you're GDS, sometimes depending on the contract, it might have to be first class, international, or business class or higher, so.
It gets really sticky. So there's a lot of words we tossed out that may not be familiar to some of you. So I'm going to put some links in for resources. One is what the GDS is. That's the Global Distribution System. But I'm going to put a link in to explain more thoroughly what that is. I'll put a link in on travel agent commissions that will explain all about airline commissions and how they work. And then we'll put one in on accreditations, because IATA is one of the accreditation options that are out there. You know what else I'm going to put in? We have one on airline fare types. So I'll put that in the comments as well. And that's helpful because when we're talking about public or private fares, that will break that down for you. But I think the bottom line for this one to take away is that it doesn't all depend on where you're based. It's more based the commissions are more based on the contracts that you have access to in your GDS system. Correct. So it's less of where you're based. It's more of who you know and who you're connected to than
pretty
where
much
you're
like
at.
Any other industry.
All about who you know. Yeah. All right. So we nailed that one. High five. We're going into the second part. All right. This is why most travel agents where I am from have added a ticketing fee to their customers. And if they sell flight only then their only revenue will be the fee that they're charging. So in the end, if I don't get any commission from airlines, what is my benefit in using a GDS? I can think of these benefits. One is complex itineraries, although many can be done with websites such as expedia.com. Two, some flexibility flexibility as a travel agent can book and hold for a certain amount of time prior to ticketing. 3, better relationship with an airline in case of problems as opposed to having to go to the individual customer service. Any other ideas?
Okay,
What'd your team say?
so yeah, Ansel was the one that helped me with these because I was like, I knew that some of these things were true because I sometimes in the past when I was selling travel, I would partner with a GDS advisor if I had a complicated itinerary,
Mm-hmm.
and those, yes, the GDS can be wonderful for that because if you go to a direct website, let's say you go to delta.com and you have what's called an open jaw where they might be leaving from one city and then going into another and then traveling to another and then coming back home to maybe a different airport. That happens sometimes. You are only able to do so much on a direct airline website with an open jaw. If it's more complicated than very simple, like leave one from one airport and return to another, then you're probably going to end up having to call the airline and have them do it for you. Otherwise, if you're trying to do it all online, you're going to have to do it under different records, and you really don't want to do that. Ideally, you want to have every leg of the flight on one single record, and that's where a GDS advisor can absolutely help you. I would not recommend using it on Expedia.com unless you're just looking for ideas. My personal recommendation would be to, if you're searching for flights and you just want to get information, is to use Google Flights because first, they don't have as many pop-ups as Expedia does. But second, with Google, you have the ability, if you see a flight that works for you, you can actually click a link and go directly to that airline's website, and it automatically populates what you saw on Google Flights, and you are a direct customer of the airline. So that would be my suggestion. Okay, so yes, complex itineraries, long story short, that's a good one. Some flexibility, yes. Usually if I think most GDS advisors, and it probably depends on the fare, they would be able to hold an itinerary for something like 48 to 72 hours, but it really depends on the fare.
Yeah.
And even then, that's not a guarantee that the price couldn't go up. They're just holding the space, but it doesn't mean the price is guaranteed for you. What else? A better relationship with an airline. I don't know if as individual advisors, we can ever really say that we're going to have a better relationship with an airline.
It's been fraught through the
It's
years.
been fraught. It has. But what I can say is that if you have booked an airline ticket through a GDS advisor has a lot more flexibility to go in and fix things should something go wrong. Is there a flight delay? Has there been a cancellation? Do they need to be rebooked? A GDS advisor is going to be able to get things like that done much faster than you picking up the phone and calling delta.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a super helpful thing to know or have access to if your client is currently stranded in an airport in a different time zone. So definitely that can be a benefit to your client. Some of the other ideas that Ansel was able to provide. So he had said supporting customers on service issues, weather delays, cancellations. We talked about that. And he said that you would have access to the latest automation applications, choosing seat assignments, making sure that you have access to all the luggage fee information, because different classes of fare are going to show, if you do basic economy on whatever airline or the equivalent of it, you're probably not going to have a check bag. You're going to probably have to pay for a check bag, and you might have to pay for a carry-on bag. So knowing those types of things ahead of time so your client can make an informed decision, that's important. They're going to show a wide variety of fares in one place. So you have one screen where you can see all those things side by side, and you're not having to click back and forth between multiple tabs. There are some deals on the GDS. I mentioned bulk fare earlier. That's an example, but there are going to sometimes be deals on the GDS that a direct customer going to AA.com or Delta.com won't have access to. And then, of course, access to not just the airlines, but the hotel and car services. And then sometimes, this is probably just a carry on to the other one, is they might have an elite price for their agents known as bargain price, which airlines can't offer to their direct clients. So there are some benefits. I still don't think it's necessarily the tool for everybody. If you're a corporate advisor, then yes, I think it would be a great thing for you to have. if you're just a leisure advisor, you have other resources. And I don't want to say just a leisure as if it's a lesser position. It's not. You're just doing something different. But you have other ways to help your clients get airfare services without necessarily taking on the liability of learning and working on the GDS. So,
That's okay. Lots of great things to talk about here. That last sentence you said is important, the liability of working in the GDS, because the GDS you can make mistakes in and you get things called debit memos. I'm going to link to our article on what a debit memo is. Make a note to myself. A debit
remember,
memo
big,
is.
big responsibility also equals sometimes big consequences.
Yep. So that's something to be aware of. I would say like the one benefit, like the benefit of using the GDS, even if you're not getting commissions from airlines, is the people that are in there that it really makes sense are, like you said, the corporate agents or people that are very focused on air. So I'm going to link to one of our travel agent chatter podcasts with Larry Nerone, who doesn't do corporate travel, but he focuses, he's an airfare travel consultant, is what he calls himself. And
Okay.
so he does it for leisure clients and then also some for their corporate trips, but he books in the GDS system. He charges anywhere from $50 to $500 per ticket. He has some clients on annual retainers. It makes sense for him because everything is all in one place. And that's why it's great for corporate, because if you need to look up if there's an earthquake in Mexico City and see if there's any travelers there, you can look it up. Their frequent flyer numbers is going to be in there, their date of birth, their passport number, all of that gets pulled in right away. So that's the value of the GDS, even beyond the commissions.
And it's
Um,
secure. That's
oh yeah,
important to know, that it is very secure. So,
yep. So we're going to link to article on what a debit memo is. There was also the mention of travel advisors being able to hold fares for a certain amount of time in the GDS system, and that's kind of a little known thing outside of for corporate travel advisors. I'll link to our article on. It's kind of a fun article. It's like I think it's titled something like three things travel advisors can do that OTAs or online travel agencies cannot do. And that is one of them. So we'll link to that so you can like brush up on your knowledge on what your edge is over OTAs.
yeah.
Um, and then when it comes to charging fees, Anonymous, this is really, it is your only revenue stream if there's no commissions that are coming into you. But making sure that you're charging at least what the going rate is. So I'm going to link to our article on our research reports that has a huge section on fees that can help you figure out, okay, what are people charging for domestic versus international fares, so that you're at least charging what the going rate is.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
well,
probably
we'll
important. I'm sorry. It's
no.
probably important to mention too that even GDS advisors typically charge fees for their services, even if
Mm,
they're earning a commission, because it costs money for them to do business on the platform. They're not just paying for that access to the GDS, but they also have to have an ARC accreditation as well. And they're processing your fee directly through that platform. So there's like probably a 3.5+% fee.
mhm.
So it's their cost of doing business as well. So they typically do charge fees for that.
Yeah, and they definitely do. And for it's not just like one time. Well, maybe some TMCs or travel management companies have worked it out where it's like an all-in-one ticketing fee, but
Mhm.
they'll charge for exchanges. They'll charge for any time they have to touch the ticket because the commissions are not guaranteed.
Yep.
I'll also link to another travel agent chatter episode on another corporate travel advisor we did. Um, and we can talk about that. She does meetings and corporate travel management for anyone that's interested in it. And if you are nervous about charging fees, we're also going to link to our article on a travel agent's guide to charging fees. And I think the most valuable thing in there is I think it's like over 100 travel advisors share the exact verbiage they use for charging fees.
It's
And they
important.
talk about if they went from not charging fees to charging it, how they told their advisors or their clients. And so there's a lot of information to give you the confidence to go out there and charge the fees. So a
Mhm.
lot of links in there, but important links because Anonymous really gave us some tough questions.
She
Ah,
did. Hats off to you. That was, and I learned a lot. So I really actually enjoyed having to dig into that a little bit. I learned a lot. So
yeah, it got me thinking as well, and so it was fun. Although, again, please, we'd love some softball questions for next week.
And fun is subjective. We get that too. So some of you might not enjoy
I
the
know, you're
same
like,
things that we do.
how many more acronyms are you going to throw out there in words I don't know, Steph and April? Well, a lot of them this week, but that's why you need to submit your questions for next week that are super easy at hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15, please.
Yes. And you might look, don't you have a glossary of
We
those
do have a
acronyms?
glossary. We do.
Throw
Oh,
that
I'm
in
going to link to our glossary. Good
there.
thinking.
Yeah.
She's so on top of life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I am going to also one more link today. I'm going to link to Uniglobe Travel Center's profile on host agency reviews, where you can read reviews from their advisors, learn more about their program, find links to their websites, see pictures of April. I think there's pictures of April on there. If
I
there's
don't know.
not, there should be.
My profile picture's on there, but I think that's it. We do have some like agency pictures, but I don't think I'm any. I might not. I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
Well, I'll make sure she puts some up for this. So, we'll link to that for all of you and upcoming in the next couple of weeks. So, April 5th, we have Oasis Travel Network is going to be on. I believe it's going to be Jill. So, if you have specific questions for them on their program, let us know. They're a host agency. April 12th, we'll be having the host agency for a travel come on. April 19th, Travel Planners International. So, all of these are host agencies. And if you have specific questions on their programs, you can submit them. They love specific questions to their agency and not these difficult ones that we have been stuck with this week. So thank you, Anonymous. But now we are free to enjoy our weekend here, April, and I am ready to kick up and relax.
Mm-hmm. We're driving into the mountains. We have our 3-day weekend. So we're driving into the mountains this weekend. And I intend, so up in Asheville, I live in right outside of Raleigh. We're going to drive up to Asheville and they have a pinball museum, a pinball machine museum. And
Like
they
in
have
Las Vegas.
Yes, it's not just pinballs though. They have pinball machines and like old school arcade games. I highly recommend this stop if you ever send clients to Asheville. It's super fun because you can pay, at least the last time I was there, which was a few years ago, you can pay like a flat fee of $25 and you could play all day long.
Oh, okay. That's because in
Because
Las
remember how much
Vegas,
money we used to spend in quarters at the
yeah.
arcade? It was a whole lot more than $25.
I
So
grew
it
up with
was
a pinball machine in the basement, and so I never had to pay. And so I went to an arcade and I was like, I just lost $20 in like 20
you guys
minutes.
will go to the blackjack tables.
It's
For real.
terrible. Well, I hope you have a wonderful trip. This is our last weekend here in Texas before we head back to Minnesota and finish up our snowbirding for the winter. So we will be back, though, next Friday, 12 p.m. Central Time. Thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon. April, thank you so much for coming on.
Anytime, anytime.
All right. Ciao, everybody.